Good morning, students. Welcome to science session, and we are dealing with the lesson 22, environmental management. Right? Now, under this lesson, in the last session, we saw what is the conservation and judicious use of the resources, forest and its importance, wildlife and its conservation, various organizations involved in the conservation of wildlife, water, soil erosion, and under renewable and non-renewable. Good morning, students. Welcome to science session, and we are dealing with the lesson 22, environmental management. Right now, under this lesson, in the last session, we saw what is the conservation and judicious use of the resources, forests and its importance, wildlife and its conservation, various organizations involved in the conservation of wildlife, water, soil erosion, and under renewable and non-renewable energy resources, we saw about the fossil fuels and coal and petroleum, right? And the steps to conserve coal and petroleum resources. Now, under non-conventional energy sources, that is alternative energy sources, we are going to see today about solar energy, biogas, shale gas, wind energy, water energy, tidal energy, rainwater harvesting, electrical energy management, e-waste management, sewage management and soil waste management. Let's get started with this session, children. So the first concept that we are going to see is the non-conventional energy resources, or it is also called as alternative energy resources, right? So for sustainable development in the energy sector, we must conserve the non-renewable conventional sources because it is undergoing rapid depletion, isn't it? So it should be replaced by the renewable sources of energy. So these renewable sources of energy are non-polluting. They are environmentally clean. So effort has been taken to develop the new sources of energy, and that is called as non-conventional sources of energy, right? And this will be of greater advantage to the local people who assess their needs, and this resources is environmentally clean and it is non-polluting, right? The first energy that we are going to see is the solar energy, right? We obviously know that the energy obtained from the sun is the solar energy, but if you see, only less than 47% of the solar energy falls on the atmosphere, reaches the Earth's surface, right? So but the sun gives large amount of, or enormous amount of the heat and the light energy, but only less than 47% reach the Earth's surface, right? So if we could use the small part of this energy to fulfill the energy crisis or the country's need, then it would be of great advantage, isn't it? So the solar energy also has many advantages, right? So if you see the solar energy devices, the energy that is obtained from the sun is converted to provide power, right? So various devices used for converting the energy, sun's energy, is called as the solar energy devices, right? So the various devices which converts the sun's energy into the solar energy is called as the solar energy devices. So the first one that we are going to see is the solar cells, right? So it is also called as photovoltaic devices, right? So this is made up of silicon that converts the sunlight directly into the electricity, right? And this solar cell provides electricity without polluting. So we said that the non-conventional sources are non-polluting, isn't it? So without polluting the environment, right? So it uses no fuel, only the sunlight is used. So no harmful gases is produced, no burning and no waste, right? So this can be installed in remote places also, where the forest, hilly regions can be installed, right? So these devices can be installed. Setting up of the power plant of certain areas like forest and the hill regions are very, very expensive. So this can be installed. And if you see the uses of the solar cells, it can be used for street lighting, traffic signals, water pumping, battery charging systems. So in those devices it can be used. and it is also used in artificial satellites and in the space equipments. It provides radio and TV transmission to the remote areas, right? And it is also used in calculators. We are familiar with the solar calculators, isn't it? And electronic toys and watches, solar watches. We are very, very familiar. And look into the screen. This is very familiar to you. That is solar panel, right? And these solar cells, many solar cells are arranged side by side. They are connected together, and this is called as the solar panel, right? And the capacity to provide this electricity is much increased in the solar panel, right? But if you see, it is very, very expensive, right? Next is the solar cooker. Solar cookers, right? Now this consists of an insulated metal box. Now here you can see, or it can also be in the wooden box, right? And it is painted from inside so that it absorbs the maximum solar radiations, right? Usually it is painted in black so that it absorbs the maximum radiation. Now it consists of a thick glass sheet which forms in cover over the box. Now here you can see the mirror, right? The reflector is the plane mirror. Now here in between you have an mirror, isn't it? So it is a plain mirror which is attached to the box, and the food is cooked by the energy that is radiated by the sun. The next one is the solar thermal power plant. Now look into the screen, children. Here you can see the solar thermal power plant. Right now in the thermal power plant, many solar panels are used to concentrate the sun rays, right? And this heats up the water in the steam, and the steam is made to run the turbines, and this produces the electricity. Now let's see the advantages of solar energy. Now if you see the advantages, it is available in abundance, isn't it? It is free of cost, right? And it is a renewable source of energy because it is non-polluting and environmentally clean, right? And it is used for generating electricity or heat, right? And it also do not cause any pollution or do not emit any harmful gases, right? So these are the advantages of the solar energy. Next is the biogas. Now here you can see the biogas power plant, right? Now biogas is nothing but the mixture of methane, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide and hydrogen, right? Now this is produced by the decomposition of the cow dung. Now the cow dung is stored in a storage tank, and the decomposition of the animal waste, that is cow dung, takes place. Even plant waste is added, and this takes place in the absence of oxygen, right? So this gas that is produced is commonly called as gobar gas because it is produced using the animal waste and the plants waste, right? But the primary material is it is produced using the cow dung, so it is called as gobar in the sense cow dung, right, in Hindi. Now if you see the uses of the biogas, it is used as in fuel for cooking. It is used to run the motors and pumps, and it is used to produce the electricity. And advantages of the biogas, because it burns without the smoke and therefore it causes less pollution, environmentally clean, right? And this is a very, very excellent way to get rid of the organic waste, that is agriculture waste, bio waste or the sewage material, right? And if the waste is left over, that is called a slurry, it is a good manure to the plants, and this is rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. It is safe and very, very convenient to use, and it reduces the greenhouse gases, that is carbon dioxide, that is emitted, right? So it can reduce the amount of greenhouse gases emitted. So these are the advantages of the biogas. Next is the shale gas. Now what is shale? Now shale is nothing but the soft sedimentary rocks that is formed from the small rocks that contains the minerals. These small old rocks contains minerals such as quartz and calcite, and these are found very deep beneath the earth's surface. And these rocks contains fossil fuels like oil and gas, right? In the pores, in between the pores, it consists of the fossil fuels, and these fuels are extracted using a technique which is called as the hydraulic fracturing, right? That is drilling. Hydraulic fracturing is nothing but drilling, boring well into the sedimentary rocks, and it reaches the reservoir, that is the reservoir that contains the fossil fuels, right? But if you see the shale gas extraction, there are certain disadvantages. The first one is that it affects the groundwater, right? It contaminates the drinking water and affects the fertility of the soil also, right? And it needs million gallons of water to break the sedimentary rocks and release the shale gas, right? And this also affects the water beneath the ground, that is the groundwater or the water table, right? So it has some disadvantages. Next, we'll see what is wind energy. Now, if there is a wind, right, when I say wind, it possesses the kinetic energy, isn't it? So kinetic energy that is possessed by the wind due to the high speed can be converted into the mechanical power, which in turn produces the electricity, right? So this kinetic energy is converted into mechanical power, right? And this is done by the wind turbines, right? So a rotatory motion of the windmill produces the wind energy, and it can be used to generate electricity, run water pumps, draw water from the wells, right? And if you see windmills, windmill is a machine. Here you can see, isn't it? You are familiar with this, right? So it's a machine which converts the energy of the wind, that is the rotating energy, into an electrical energy, right? Now when the blowing of the air strikes the blade of the windmill, it exerts the force and causes the blade to rotate, right? Normally we know about it, very obviously we know about it, right? So this rotational movement of the blades operates the generator that is present, and the electricity is produced, right? So the energy output of each windmill is coupled together, it is joined together to get the electricity for the commercial uses, right? Commercial scale, that is in the large scale, right? And if you see the advantages of the wind energy, it is free of cost, eco-friendly, it is the renewable source of energy, very important, and it is non-pollutant, isn't it? Do not cause any pollution. And if you see maintenance is also very low compared to that of any other power plant. Next is the water energy. Now we know that the earth consists of nearly 71% of water, isn't it? So the energy from the flowing water can be used to produce the electricity, and this type of energy is called as the hydropower, right? And the electrical energy that is arrived or derived from the flowing of water from the height, that is from the waterfalls, is called as the hydroelectric power plant, right? And hilly areas are suited for producing electricity, where there is a continuous flow of water in large amount that is flowing through the waterfalls, right? And it do not cause any environmental pollution or the waste generation, isn't it? Usually the hydroelectric plant is pollution less, environmentally clean, right? And this converts the kinetic energy, because it possesses the kinetic energy when it flows, and this can be converted into electricity. So it is called as the hydroelectricity. And if you see the tidal energy, that is the energy obtained from the movement of water due to the ocean tides, right? Tidal tides, right? So tides are the rise and fall of the sea level, isn't it? So this causes movement in the turbines, and this is helpful in producing the electricity. The tidal stream is nothing but the fast flowing body of water that is created by the tides, right? And the turbines that is placed in the tidal streams are made to rotate. This hits the turbine and the turbine rotates and it converts the tidal energy into the electrical energy. And if you see the advantages of the tidal energy, do not produce any pollution at all, right? And do not use any fuel, because the movement of the water is the source of the fuel, right? And do not produce any waste also. And it can be predicted, right? So the tidal energy can be produced at any time, right? It is predictable, right? And water is denser than air, isn't it? So therefore the electricity that is generated even at a very low speed will be very effective than the wind turbines, right? So this is about the water energy or the tidal energy. Next is the rainwater harvesting. What is rainwater harvesting? It is nothing but the collection and the storage of the rainwater for the future use. Now, if you see the traditional method of storing the rainwater in the it can be done in the underground tanks, ponds, lakes, check dams, and it is used for the future use, right? And the main purpose of the rainwater harvesting is to make the rainwater go deep into the ground so that it recharges the groundwater level, to increase the groundwater level, right? So the rainwater percolate, right? It seeps under the ground and it recharges the groundwater level so that the groundwater level do not get depleted, right? And if you see the methods of rainwater harvesting, there are many methods. The first one is the rooftop rainwater harvesting. Now, if you see, rooftop are the excellent rain catcher, isn't it? It holds the rainwater, isn't it? So the rain falls on the roof of the house or the apartments or the commercial buildings, and it is collected and stored in the surface tank, right? And it can be used for the domestic purpose. So this is one of the way. The other one is that recharge pit. Now in this method, what will happen? The rainwater is first collected from the roof top and or the open space, you can say, whatever it is, and it is directed into the pits, right, through the pipes, and this is done for filtration purposes, right? Now after the filtration of the rainwater, it enters into the recharge pit, that is the ground levels, or you can say ground wells. We'll have ground wells, isn't it? So this can be entered into the ground wells so that it recharges the pit, right? So this is one of the way. Now if you see the rural areas, they adopt different methods. The first one is the digging of tanks or lakes, that is called as the eris, right? So this is one of the traditional method of rainwater harvesting. Even it is done in Tamil Nadu even now. Eris are constructed in such a way that if one of the pit or the tank gets filled, automatically it gets overflows and enters into the next area that is connected in the next village, or it will automatically get diverted to the next area, to the next village. So these areas are interconnected. So if one get filled and it overflows into the next one, right? The next one is the orange. Now this is nothing but a small pond to collect the rainwater, and this water is used for various domestic purposes like washing, drinking purposes, etc. And this pond is mainly constructed near the villages so that it is useful for the village people. And if you see the advantages of the rainwater harvesting, it recharges the groundwater level, isn't it? So to overcome the depletion of the groundwater level, and of course it meets the demand for water. It reduces the flood and soil erosion because it acts as a water catchment, right? And water can be stored in ground. So it is one of the way of recharging the groundwater level, isn't it? So it is not contaminated by human or the animal waste. So it will be very, very effective for the domestic purposes or for the drinking purpose. Now we saw about the various energy, isn't it? Biogas, solar energy, wind energy, shale gas. So ultimately this is used for producing the electricity. So conservation of electrical energy is also a very, very important one, right? So what can you do to conserve the electricity, right? Now you can use the effective appliances to save the electricity. For example, fluorescent light, light emitting diode, that is called as LED, and other electrical equipments that uses the energy effectively, right? And switch off the light, fans and television if it is not in use, right? Unnecessary running of light, fans and televisions will use lot of electrical energy, right? And switch off the mobile phone charger when not in use, right? Normally we forget to switch off the mobile phone chargers, isn't it, when it is not in use. So maximum use of solar radiations, like solar heater can be used, right? Solar panels can be used so that it conserves the electrical energy. And minimum use of air conditioner because it consumes lot of electrical energy. Next we'll see about the e-waste. Now what are e-waste? E-waste, in the sense electronic waste, is called as e-waste. That is spoiled, outdated, non-repairable electrical devices or the electronic devices is called as the e-waste. Now if you see in the picture, you can see that small devices, audio video equipments, printers, monitors, computers, cell phones, so these are nothing but the e-waste, right? And these waste contains toxic metals like lead, cadmium, chromium and mercury, right? So these are very, very harmful, right? These also contain some metals that can be recovered, right? Iron, copper, silicon, aluminium. So this can be recovered, and only 5% of the e-waste is recycled, right? It can be recycled, only 5% can be recycled. And if you see the sources of e-waste, computers, mobile phones, printers, I said earlier, isn't it? Calculators, toys, these DVD players. So these are the electronic devices. And if you see the household electrical appliances like grinder, mixie, microwave oven, water heaters, so these are some of the sources of e-waste. Printers, batteries, chargers, so these are about the some of the e-waste. And if you see the impact of the e-waste on the environment, without any knowledge, we are disposing the electrical and electronic devices, isn't it? These becomes landfills and water pollutants, but we do it without our knowledge, right? Disposal of any electrical and electronic devices can become a landfill and should be avoided, because these are normally dumped in the yards, right? And the e-waste dumping yards pollute the underground water and the nearby areas, and it affects the soil also and causes severe health problems. Next is the sewage management, right? Now if you let the untreated sewage and the wastewater that is produced or generated by the domestic and industrial plants, it contaminates the water nearby, and it also results in the agricultural land contamination. And if you see the sources of the sewage or the wastewater, domestic purposes or the household activities leads to the sewage. Dyeing and textile industries, leather industries, sugar industries, paper and pulp industries, so these are the main sources of the sewage and wastewater, isn't it? Now this should be treated so that it do not causes any pollution. Now if you see the treatment method, it consists of the following steps. The first one is now here in the picture you can see the steps that is followed for the sewage treatment method. The first one is the pre-screening, that is the wastewater that is produced or generated from the domestic and the industrial plants activities. So it is screened so that it removes the solid and the solid particles, right? The next one is the aeration. Aeration is that the screened water, that is the solid particles that has been removed from the sewage water, it is then pumped into an aerated tank. Right now here the microorganisms are removed by the biological degradation, right, and this takes place in the presence of air. Next is the sedimentation process. Now sedimentation, settling down, sedimentation in the sense settling down, right. Now in this process, what will happen, the solid particles that is present is allowed to settle, it is allowed to stand in a tank for hours together, so that the particles settle down and the suspension is removed as in sludge. The next is the sludge removal. That is what I said. The sludges that is generated is just removed periodically, right? The next is the disinfectant, right? Now you get the water at the top, isn't it? After removing the sludge, which is the solid particles that's settled down at the bottom of the tank. Now this water is treated with chlorine, that is called as chlorination. So chlorine is added and the ultraviolet radiation is also passed through the water, so that it removes any microorganisms if present, right. The next one is the water recycling. The water will then again supplied for the domestic or the industrial purpose. So this is how it is treated. The first one is the pre-screening to remove the solid particles, aerated because it removes the microorganisms in presence of oxygen. Next is the sedimentation is allowed to settle down and the suspension is removed as sludge. The next one is the disinfection, chlorination and the ultraviolet radiation is done to treat the water to remove any microorganisms if any, and this is again recycled for domestic purpose. Next is the solid waste management. If I say solid waste, it is nothing but the domestic waste, hospital waste, industrial waste and the e-waste, right? Now normally these solid wastes are dumped into the land so that it affects the land pollution. But the solid waste management has to be done so that it do not cause any pollution. So solid waste management is nothing but the collection, treating it and the proper disposing of the solid material that is generated from the household activities or the industrial activities. And if you see the methods of solid waste disposal, the first one is the segregation. Even at home we segregate the dustbin, isn't it, into the biodegradable and non-biodegradable before we dispose to the municipality, isn't it? So the segregation is nothing but the separation of different types of the solid waste into biodegradable and degradable, right? And the next one is the sanitary landfill. So the biodegradable material are dumped into the low-lying areas and it is allowed to stabilize for about 2 to 12 months so that the organic matter undergoes complete decomposition, right? And the next one is the incineration, that is burning of the biodegradable solid waste, especially the medical waste. It is done in a properly constructed furnace at very high temperature so that the medical waste are burnt and do not cause any harmful diseases or causes the land pollution or the water pollution. The next one is the composting. Composting in the sense the biodegradable material are made to act upon by the microorganisms. So the microbial action or the earthworms is also used to digest the biodegradable material so that it is converted into humus, right? Recycling of waste, right? So papers from the old magazines, newspapers can be recycled to produce papers which in the paper mills, or otherwise if you see cow dung or the other organic waste can be converted into a biogas so that it provides electricity, and the slurry can be used as manure for the fields, right? Agricultural waste like coconut shell, jute can be used to make paper. Paddy husk can be used as an fodder for the livestock. So certain materials can be recycled, right? And certain materials or the waste can be reused, isn't it? And reduce certain use of the material so that it is very useful for the environment, right? Protection, right? Protecting the environment, protecting the earth, right? So there are 4 R's, right? Now here you can see only 3 R's, but there are 4 R's. The first one is reduce, reuse, recovery, and recycle. So these should be followed for effective waste management, so that our earth, living planet, will become pollution free and suitable for the living organisms to lead an healthy life. So with this we come to the end of the lesson. So in this session we have learned about the non-conventional energy sources, that is solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy, shale gas, and the rainwater harvesting, e-waste management, sewage management, and the solid waste management, right? Now your homework for today is in page number 327. Have the long answer question, and your homework is the first question. How does rainwater harvesting structures recharge the groundwater? I'll upload the PDF. So copy the answer for the first question in the classwork and submit the classwork in the school office on Friday. We'll meet you in the next session with a new chapter. Till then, take care. Thank you, children.